All right. Good afternoon, good morning, good evening, everybody. It's so great to have you here. My name is Michael Schuberg. I'm the network manager for the Retreat Center collaboration, and I'm just so delighted that you've all found your way to this call today, where we have Alec and Cameron from Retreat Guru, who have done some analysis of trends and insights that they have for us, and they're going to lead us in an engaging conversation today, where we'll have a chance to ask questions and to kind of see the landscape of retreat as of, today, March 25th, 2026. But before we get into that, I'm just going to invite us to allow ourselves to arrive to this moment and to this time. So just take your hands off your keyboard, put your phone down, put your pen down, just find yourself in the chair that you're in, let your feet be on the floor, just open up those hands, just let your whole body, your whole spirit, your whole soul come to this moment. And let's just take a few breaths in together. In and out. Another big one in and out. We breathe in the goodness of this day. We breathe in the goodness of this conversation that we will have together. And we let all that has come as baggage just be set aside for this time to be in this circle, into this collective community of sharing and learning. I just invite you to come back to the circle and just allow your eyes to greet one another. Look at these beautiful bodies, humans, complex and wonderful, have arrived to the circle today. And just offer gratitude to each person from wherever you are for being here today and for giving your time to RCC and to learn. So I'm glad that you're all here. We are recording this call and it will be posted on the RCC blog section in a week or so. So if you have any questions about that, you can let me know. I'm watching the chat. I'm watching the folks coming in and out and hear from a tech perspective in the background. But I'm going to now turn it over to Alec and Cameron, and I just want to express my gratitude to you for taking your time today, for volunteering to share this information. We're really grateful for your expertise and your knowledge, and we look forward to learning together with you. Over to you.
Thanks, Michael. Maybe I'll oh, introduce myself. My name is Cameron Wenaus, and I am the co-founder and current CEO of Retreat Guru. Um, we also have another subsidiary company called Synthesis Institute, which trains people to become psychedelic practitioners and runs legal psilocybin retreats in the Netherlands. So, also connected to running retreats personally. And yeah, through a conversation with Michael, we thought, hey, maybe we could share some data of what we're seeing. So this Michael thought it would be a good idea to jump on a call and share and have a conversation. That's my intro. And Alec, pass it over to you.
Yeah, my name's Alec. I've been with Retreat Guru for just over 3 years now, and I lead our sales and partnerships team. Mostly that I like to think of myself and my role and my team as just making sure that um, when people are looking to Retreat Guru, that they know kind of what we can do and what we can offer, and see if it's a good fit for us to help you run a smooth retreat center. And today, Cam and I will be presenting a data presentation that has been kind of collected and anonymized over a large swath of all of our retreat centers that we work with. And it was at first quite daunting when we saw all the data, but it was quite wonderful to see what we could poll and all the questions and suspicions that we had, some things came out of left field, some things kind of validated our assumptions. And Cam and I both believe that it is our responsibility to be able to share that with our own community. And the RCC is a large part of that community. Many of you faces today are familiar to myself. And for those of you who I haven't met previously, I look forward to getting to know you even further on this journey.
Okay, thanks, Alec. Back in 2018, I don't know if anybody knows Christine Lines on this call, but Christine Lines was the part of a group called the Holistic Centers Network. And we were invited to come down to Quebec and be part of just the community there of retreat center owners and operators. And we decided to celebrate that by bringing some data down and doing a presentation. And we did, and it went well. And then in 2019, gave another presentation at the gathering in Omega, and then Hollyhock, another gathering there. Went down to, I think, the second RCC gathering at Commonweal and did a data presentation there and really connected with Oren and crew. Um, uh, that was when RCC was birthing itself, actually, wondering what it might be as an organization. And so neat to be. Did a number of presentations over the online or mostly in person, but a few online. Um, Mostly we do these presentations like when there's actually in-person gathering and retreats. But did a few online during COVID, and well, here we are back online. Who knows if we're going to present again? What I find is really helpful is that these are more conversations. I like to have data in like juicy conversations that data makes them active and like, oh yeah, really? Well, is that what does that mean? Or how does that are my experience? So I really encourage us all, like the last thing I want is like dead wall of silence and then lots of data. That just sucks, right? So I think it's a lot more fun and engaging if we can pause, maybe even take a stretch break at some point because, data is pretty heady. Take a moment even to drop back in our bodies and into our hearts as we look at the data and like realize this is data, but it's also people, it's aspirations, it's people's path and lively and life transformation. So it's more than just data. So I'd love to be able just to engage and spark a conversation as we go through this. I think we have, what, an hour and 20 minutes left of this call, right? Yeah, and if we make it through all the data, we do. If we don't, we don't. We'll send out the presentation. But I'd love to be able to pause and go through and keep it conversational. So feel free to, first of all, like if you're on camera, I really appreciate it. And if you can come on camera, that's also kind of nice too, because it makes us feel more of a community. I think we're about a 50-50 split on off camera. So if you are able to turn your camera on, that would make my nervous system settle a bit, but no pressure. And also anytime during the conversation, like, yeah, unmute, ask a question. I love questions. I won't have the answer, but somebody else might, or maybe we can collectively come up with the answer, or just hold the question, because holding questions is great. We don't necessarily have to have the answers. So that's my preamble. And with that, let's dive in. Oh, somebody's taking care of a bottle-fed lamb. Oh my goodness. You need to come on camera. Like, what the hell? We want to see the lamb. No, that's okay. No pressure. But that's the best excuse for not coming on camera I've ever heard. So that's incredible. Yeah, and if you want to, yeah, thanks, Michael. If you want to
Oh,
post it too. Oh
there's the lamb.
yeah.
This is so
While
cute.
we're on the topic, I'll bring her over to say hi. This is
Oh,
Donut.
hi, Donut. Oh my
She's 6 days
goodness.
old.
Oh my
This could
goodness.
be this could be our incentive for RCC calls in the future, right? Baby animals.
Yeah.
Every time we come to an RCC call, oh hi, you saying hi? You
Oh,
get to see a baby animal. Okay, I won't distract
oh,
too much.
oh, I love it. We could just do an hour and a half of donut. That would work for me. Oh
She
my
would probably
God.
love it.
Yeah. I love it. Maybe she'll come back and visit at spontaneous moments in the conversation. Who knows?
We'll see how she's doing. She needs to eat her lunch right now.
Yeah. Thanks, Kirsten. Appreciate it.
Yeah, we bet.
Okay, so let me share my screen and uh we will dive in. Okay. So, can everybody see my screen? Yeah. Okay. Good. So, yeah, so a little bit about Retreat Guru. We build software for retreat centers. We're often their system of record, it's a registration system of record. So, as a result, we end up having a lot of data. And what we're going to do is look at that data. Uh, we took a snapshot of data between 2022 and 2025, just looked at that time window, post-COVID, basically, you could say. And we're going to take a look at pricing, benchmarks, booking behavior, participation, and some demographics. And then if we have time, we might get into some like key takeaways and like ideas that spring forward, recommendations, but who knows? Uh, okay, so the data sample that we have is 398,740 registrations we looked at across Americas, Europe, North America, Central America. Okay. And across 896 centers. So just right there, I mean, 400,000 retreats happened. That's pretty cool. Even just that moment. Um, and that's just the sample we're looking at. So and what we did is to clean it up, we made sure that we just looked at retreats between the price tag of 200 and 8,000, and we looked at just 1 day retreats to 22. We didn't really there's reasons why we made those filters, but we tried to just keep the data as clean as possible. Um, the kinds of centers that we looked at were Buddhist, mindfulness meditation, psychedelic, yoga. Rather, I should say the kind of programs we looked at, because some centers actually host all different kinds of programs, right? We looked at creative art programs, Christian, somatic trauma therapy, wellness, fitness. So the whole gamut. Um, and yeah, we wanted to take a look at what some of the benchmarks were for the industry, answering questions like how much do retreats cost and what are the nightly rates and have things shifted over the years. Um, so we'll get into that. So the first thing that we looked at was like out of those close to 400,000 registrations, what were the most popular kinds of programs? Anybody have a leaning, I guess? You can feel into it yourself, but I'll share here. So this is the registration mix that we saw by program type. A large portion of them were Buddhist programs. Again, these aren't retreat centers. These are programs because, like Esalen, for example, could have a somatic therapy training program, one a creative art program the next week and a yoga program the next week, or could be concurrently holding all three. So these are programs. So we the lion's share, 30% were classified as Buddhist. And what we did is we did a semantic analysis of both the program name and the description to get to this bucket. And then 20% in meditation, mindfulness. I'll send out this whole presentation, by the way, so you guys don't have to write it all down unless you learn better that way by writing. Psychedelics, 12%, yoga, 7, creative art, Christian, 4%. Uh, so I just want to pause here. What are people's uh, yeah, insights or reactions to this? Surprising or by the way, preamble, this data is heavily skewed. It's heavily skewed because these are our customers, right? So, there could be these unseen biases. So we have to look at all this data through this lens of, hey, these are customers of Retreat Guru. It just so happens that the founders are both Buddhist.
I was gonna say,
Maybe there's a, maybe there, maybe there's a little bias there, Paul.
Cameron, what percentage with that? What percent can you tell us, Retreat Guru, what percentage of your retreat centers that you work with are Buddhists or different? You have a actual link to that? I mean, I'm assuming that you have a lot less Catholic or Christian retreat centers with only 3%, where at my place it would be 95%
Right.
or more. So can
Yeah.
you give us a little understanding of this data based on the type of retreat centers your percentage of retreat centers you're working with?
Yeah, so I'll do my best. Great
Okay.
question, Paul. Yeah. So my self-disclosure is that both my brother and I as co-founders are both Buddhists. So we may have leaned a little bit heavily, and we also, we may have leaned a little heavily towards the Buddhist when saying, "Oh, we'd love to work with that center. Let's bring them on."
Yeah.
That bias has to be in there. However, one thing I've noticed is a lot of centers aren't 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 specific themes. They're like when we look at like Esalen or Spirit Rock, their programs might be in multiple different categories. Hollyhock, right? So a lot of centers, and then when you get into it, it's almost nuanced because the retreat itself, what we're seeing is a retreat might actually have aspects of meditation, aspects of yoga, even breath work in them with some creativity. So how do what we are seeing is a trend that retreats are starting to be a little bit more unified and be more multidiscipline, multidisciplinary approaches, and seeing the common themes among them. And I'm seeing some heads nod. So I think, yeah, we're all feeling that. Whereas maybe 20 years ago, Buddhist retreat's a Buddhist retreat, yoga's yoga, and Christian's Christian, but now meditation and Christian retreats, and you might do some yoga as part. So I wish the data was, I would love to have the data be super clean, but I really think that the trends are more towards more of a multidisciplinary offering. Yeah. So, okay, well, there we are. So lots of caveats with the data, but this was also just 2025. So we're looking at 122,000 people who went on retreat or registrations. And so in the next bunch of data I want to share, we're going to see the mean and median. Now I'm going to welcome you back to grade 7, where it's mean, median, and what's the third one? Oh yeah,
Mode.
Julie got it. Mode, I saw. Okay. Yeah. And so I actually, well, I was like, what are the, I had to kind of, so mode is the most common number in a data set, but we don't have to look at that. Just for a quick crash course on mean and median. Mean means average, so we use that a lot. That's a simple thing. We total up every value in the data set and we divide it by the number of how many retreats there were. So for a grand total, we'll add all the if we had 100 retreats, we'd add them all together. We divide by 100 and we get the average. That's easy. We all know that. The median number is if you take like say you took 100 retreats and you order them from the lowest cost retreat all to the highest cost retreat, the median would be that price of that retreat that's at the 50th, the fifth in the right in the middle of the data set. So that gives us a kind of a sense of where's the middle price when we get into pricing. Oh, and we're going to see differences between the middle and then the average. And that's going to tell us it's going to point to some possible information. So crash course and median. Uh, so a question that we started to ask was, have the prices changed over the last 4 years? So since we've come out of COVID, the pandemic, what's changed? What hasn't changed? So this is what we found. Um, the this we'll call this, I guess, brown line is the median price. So the median prices are actually first and foremost, you can see they're lower, a lot lower than the average price, than the mean. So that tells us something. It's like, okay, in this data set that we're dealing with, there are the heavier or the more expensive retreats, like there's a lot more expensive retreats than less expensive retreats. So it could be that they're charging, that there's just more of those in the data. It could be that they're just, yeah, there's a number of reasons, but regardless, the data we can see a trend toward the difference between these two. And so that's just one piece of data. But another more interesting piece is that growth. So in 2020, we're kind of coming in the median at around, 700 well, actually here at 760. And then when we get over here, 4 years later, it's not 790. So it went up $20 or $30 or something. Not much, 2.63%. But the average price actually did go up quite high. So it rose 8 point, close to 9%. So what this means is that there's a whole, if this is the average, that means there's a whole, you can't see this line, but right here, there's a whole bunch of retreats that are in this much, much, much higher price. So what we're looking at is that which then drags the average down. So we're looking at in the data set, we're seeing that, wow, there are above or beyond the 50th percentile, the retreats are actually much higher priced. So there is a premium retreat offering out there that might represent your center, but you might think, well, no, actually we're more into the median. So pause there for any questions or just any comments.
Cameron, on the last event from RCC that I attended, we were sort of talking about the market going into like spa retreats and then the more nitty-gritty kind of retreat centers. And I'm wondering if maybe that has
We
something to
don't,
do with the data you're seeing.
yeah, we don't have any spa customers. No, we don't serve the spa community at all. We only serve, yeah, retreats. We just never got into that market. Um, so, but we do have a number of retreat centers that are quite premium. Like when you get into the psychedelic space, if you're doing a 7-day iboga retreat, that's like $8,000, $9,000, right? Then you can see some premium psychedelic retreat centers out there that are also, yeah. And then of course it also depends on your rooms, right? So within this, a center could actually have like Esalen has a sleeping bag spot, and then you can also get an ocean view if you're a VC backed Bay Area techie, you're gonna spend $14,000 on your 5-day retreat, and you can at Esalen, right? And likewise, so this could be indicative of the different mixes within program, the lodging types as well.
Can you just say a little more about how you would define how a premium retreat is being defined and how that's distinctive from the average?
I can't define that, but the data suggests, besides the couple of examples that I just gave, but the data suggests that there are retreats because the mean is higher than the median and significantly. The data suggests that there are these premium either retreats or we'll call it registrations, but that are out there that we need to say, okay, are we those? Maybe we are, maybe we're not. Is that an opportunity for us? Maybe, maybe not. And we'll actually dive into some of that. We'll double click a little bit on these potential differences and opportunities. But when we looked at this data, well, I'll pass it over to you, Alec.
Yeah, and when we looked at the rising or flattening of retreat costs, one thing that really jumped out at us was the rate of inflation, especially since 2022 has been quite high. And the rate of inflation is compounding. So if we have 3% inflation over a long period of time, we're actually looking at not a 3% growth over 9 years, it is yearly. So it's exponentially growing, which makes us really dive into, okay, if cost of retreats are rising, are they rising proportional and in line with inflation? And what we found diving into the rising costs is that the median is actually declining compared to the rate of inflation, whereas our average and mean is keeping up relatively with inflation. And what this actually suggests is that the higher ticket retreat centers or retreat programs are keeping up with inflation and are growing their ticket prices. However, this points out that a lot of, I think what was used the term earlier there, the nitty-gritty or retreat centers, are not reflecting the cost of inflation into, or may not be reflecting the cost of inflation into their programming. And I sit down with a lot of retreat centers, and I can understand why. We are a heart-driven and mission-driven. Uh, we do this out of kindness and wanting to see personal growth rather than financial growth in a lot of times. However, your costs of your inputs, your kitchen costs, your staffing costs are growing. So if you are feeling a pinch, I think this here highlights the fact that there's a discrepancy between the inflation and what we're seeing in the data for our retreat centers and what they're charging.
Does anybody feel like they resonate with the brown line at their center? Yeah. Yeah. At my local Buddhist Shambhala center, I feel like we haven't changed our price. I'm like, God. You get into this kind of like, well, what are they charging? Or what do we use to charge as a way, not cost plus, right? Yeah. Okay.
And we'll dig into more what are the nightly is across what our nightly averages are across. But before we do that, I think it might be best to actually dive into what would be the most popular length of programs here.
Okay. So here we are. What are the most popular program lengths? It's like Alec knew the next slide through some moment of prescience. Okay. So here we are. So I want to just unpack this a little bit. The one doesn't mean number of nights. These are number of days, not nights. So the 3 day is a 2 night, Friday night, Saturday, Sunday, like leave Sunday, right? So okay. So here we have this is our day-long workshop. No overnighter. this is a spend one night. This is a weekend program. So 25% are of the programs of the 400,000 registrations we looked at, 25% of them were for weekend programs. So this is our clear winner. And then it's a really interesting trend to see just this, nice cascading down here, where we're seeing 16% is our 3-day program. And then, we're cascading down. And then a real steep drop. This is our 8-day, so that's a seven night. That's a week long, right? Full week. And then we just don't see any traction past that. It kind of flattens out. Surprising, or yeah, this tracks. Yeah, Laura's thumbs up. Madonna, oh hi, yay! It's great. Okay. So if you're thinking about oh, should we do this one night or 2 nights? Right. The answer might be try the weekend program. Like, should we just have this? If you're these aren't super, they're not super common. And are they not super common because nobody's offering them, or are they not super common because nobody wants them? But with supply and demand, if a lot of people wanted them, we'd probably offer them. So that's hopefully helpful. And then we looked at what the nightly rates were. So and do they change our nightly rates as a function of program length? And so what we see here, again, there's 2 lines. The brown line is the median, the nitty-gritty, we're going to call it that, the nitty-gritty. And then the orange line or yellowy orange line is the average or the mean. So we're seeing a pretty big discrepancy between them both in terms of the 1 day. So this is a workshop. You could see, so this is a not overnight, and we could look at this as like, this might be a training or a certification, but it's a high-end ticket price. You're coming for 1 day. And then our weekend retreat, or a day-long retreat rather, is a drop. And then our weekend retreat here comes up to $300 per night. So seeing maybe more as a more premium, we're getting a little bit more dollar. So again, that would be a good case to not run the nightlies, the one-nighters, but the 2 nights, because they seem to command for both the mean and the median a higher price point. People might be thinking, oh, I'm getting a more immersive experience, so it's worth more to me, rather than just show up, spend the night and then leave, right? You have that day in the middle where you really marinate. So, and then there's some interesting peaks here again. Same kind of pattern after the week-long program. Like the 8 days, the week-long program. It's more expensive per night than the 6-day. Huh. Or the 7, which is the 6-night, 7-day program. So again, it could be seen as like people value going away for a week more than 6 days. Again, you've got a little difference there. And then, but the most important thing, I think, is that we're seeing this economies of scale. The number here, here's our workshop. That's very expensive. And then just down here, we're saying, well, typically the longer the retreat is, the cheaper it is per night. And I think how does anybody, I mean, this is my read on these, by the way. I'd welcome anybody else's read if we have like, no, I don't think it means that. I think it means something else. Oh, Laura just said thumbs down. It did. You had a thought. So maybe Laura wants to say something. Laura wants to say something. I know, it's hilarious. I love those icons. Anybody want to do a real-time data interpretation on this slide? Or do you agree with my thesis?
Cameron, do you have certain type of retreats that happen at a lot of retreat centers that go the 6, 7 days, that you'd have that peak there because you have more that are happening there in that type of situation?
Yeah, so above, you can actually see that, yeah, there's a lot more of this is the volume
Yeah.
of 7%. So you multiply 7% by 400,000. And that's the volume of registrations that were a week long versus the volume that were 8 days. So not many people do an 8 day retreat. So yeah, this is the popularity or the sheer volume of retreats in the last since 2022 to 2020 till the end of 2025. So 4 full years. We're seeing that there is a that yeah, there's a popularity contest for sure.
Mhm.
Cameron,
Yeah.
this
Hi,
this
Joanne.
is Joanne. I'm assuming that your samples only include registrations for programmed retreats. Is that correct? Like not for a hosted or a rental retreat.
That's correct.
Okay.
We took rentals out of the data set by creating that limiter of that I think it was an $8,000 price. We kind of went, we took, and we also have, well, there's a mix because some rental centers that use our software to do the rental contract, but then because our software allows them then to take the registrations for those rentals, those would show up in the data. For the centers, the rental centers that said, we had a $30,000 rental contract, but then we allow our renter to use Retreat Guru to then do their registration, because that's a feature that we offer. Then those registrations happen in their system. Whereas if you just did a straight up $30,000 rental and you don't know who's coming, that data is not in here.
Okay. Thank you.
So in short, just to clarify, all of our centers who rent out their space, they have the option where the leader can take the payments or the center will take the payments for each individual. So the data that we have presented here would be strictly for nightly, and rather than a lump sum payment of $30,000. So there are some rentals in here as well.
What was behind your question, Joanne? I'm curious.
Because at Knobs Haven, we only do rentals, we don't do programs. And so I'm just wondering what I'm comparing us to.
Yeah, right. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And for me, I wonder if silent directed retreats are considered programmed retreats or not, and whether they would be included in your rubric.
Yeah, like the kind of check into one of our solar retreat cabins, come for 21 days and we'll provide meals for you. But yeah, is that what you meant by the silent self-directed or the silent?
Well, I was thinking more of uh, where there's spiritual accompaniment, like one time a day. So the participant or the retreatant is there in silence, but they meet with a guide or companion
Yeah.
once a day as they reflect on what they're bringing into that retreat time.
Very likely that those retreats are in this mix. Yeah, very likely. We have a number of Christian retreat centers and Buddhist retreat centers that operate with that model. Yeah. Which then, of course, would bring that price down, right? I mean, often then, yeah. So, okay. And then here's just a quick table that I thought it was helpful just to have the actual numbers if you're ever looking. It's nice to know the numbers. So that comes along with the presentation. Then another question we asked is, do the prices differ as a function of lodging type, single, double, dorm, you know? So we saw, oh yes, quite a bit. Well, it's suspected, of course, that we charge a little bit, that retreat centers charge more for single rooms than double rooms. But we were a little bit surprised by this. The discrepancy between the median and the mean is just incredible. So the median here is this more auburn. And here, if you just ignore the orange right now, you just stick to the auburn, we can see, yeah, look at this, like 180 here, 160 median double, 140, 100, and a dorm is 60. Nightly price for a room. Okay. And then we're seeing a massive jump. I mean, this isn't just a few, when we looked at the other data in terms of the grand totals, there was about a 30 or 40% increase, but here this is just like almost 3x. So it feels, and this is the mean. So that means there are centers that are, pushing this up quite high to get the average up to 480, but yet the median is at 180. So it could be that centers have an opportunity to raise the prices for private rooms. Privacy, I would argue that, yeah, privacy is valued by certain types of people. And if that's a premium, you might, if you're looking for revenue growth opportunities, maybe there's a place where this section could come up a little bit higher here. Any feedback when you look at this about the price differences either or between rooms or between average and median? No. Okay. That means I'm either doing my job well or doing my job poorly. I'm not sure. But we'll keep going.
Actually,
Oh,
I have a comment. This is Linda from Rottnest. I am a little surprised that the median, yes, is not bigger difference between private and dorm. But, I
well,
guess there's so
it
much
certainly
data that we don't
is.
know.
The median there is 180, but the
Yeah.
dorm is 60.
So 100, so it's 3 times.
Yeah.
Uh,
Oh,
I
you
guess,
would expect it to be even bigger for the
I mean, I suppose it depends on the facility, right? For us, it's a ginormous difference in what they get, but maybe
right.
that's not always true.
So
Depends on what they
Ratnaling
get.
is the one probably hanging out in the average. Uh,
We, yeah,
yeah, yeah,
yeah, we are. Yeah.
yeah. Great, great. So yeah, you kind of know your place in the data set. Okay, we're
Well, it's
here.
helpful. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. This data is meant to help us triangulate. Where are we? These are benchmarks. So it's like, well, where are we compared to these benchmarks?
No, it's
And
good because
there's
we're always figuring out what pricing, costs go up. Can we raise the price or not? And it depends on all this stuff. Yeah.
yeah. Thanks, Linda.
Yeah.
That's great. That's super helpful. Anybody else want to chime in and feel like talk about where they feel their center's at vis-a-vis the benchmarks here?
I can just say for Mount Madonna, ours matches this. And yes, sadly, we're on the more on the mean pattern, not to be mean. And they're actually going to capitalize even more in 2027 on the single privates, but that's partly because we have a limitation on rooms and privates are very popular. So we both want to discourage that and take advantage of it if it's the demand.
We're always like struggle with, okay, what do we charge double if we have a facility or what do you call a lodging, place that is designed for two, but person wants the whole one themselves. Do we double it? So there's that kind of question that we can use this kind of data to help us decide as well.
Anybody? Thank you. This is great. It's nice to spark. Does anybody have a comment? Like, do they double? Are you in the double category? If there's one person checking into a room with two beds, you could sell two registrations. Um, is anybody else in that, or sitting with that problem rather, or other lodging type questions, problems, or
I can just share that if it's helpful to anyone, we are doing that in 27. We are getting very near to doubling the privates. So we the price includes meals, so we are definitely taking the meals out. But I think we're getting near to 70, 85% in the next
One
fiscal year.
we're going to jump into also like inventory and registrations per booking type. But one thing that did come up when I was at the gathering for the RCC and also in some calls that I have with centers is that post-COVID, you've some centers have noticed that there's more hesitation behind doing shared rooms. Is that something that people are noticing more? And is there any way that you can think that that would shift back in the future? And is that more of a society thing or something that that center can push more to encourage shared rooms?
well, food for thought.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Um, let's move on here. So, Alec?
Yeah. So room mix across centers. We have broken down our kind of what inventory is across all our centers, and that single and private rooms are taking up a large majority of what is in the inventory that you have. So physical rooms on site, with some double, and then so two people staying in the same room, and then more of the shared triple and quads are short. So in terms of the actual sheer number of rooms, it is a large majority that are single and private retreatants who are taking up that space. But what's interesting is that in the next piece here is, where are people actually booking into? And we found that although that a large majority of your inventory is single and private, there's less people booking those private rooms. And when it comes to the sheer number of registrations, it actually increases in the doubles and shared accommodations. So when you look at the footprint, the physical footprint, then we're looking at more opportunities for people to book privately. But we're seeing a greater share of all registrations being in double and larger occupancy rooms. Does that make sense?
Does this surprise anybody, or does this feel like it tracks? Like, does this look like the breakdown of your center, or half of your room singles, and then, a third of them doubles? By the way, we didn't look at this, like we didn't average out every center. What we did is we looked at all the rooms all the lodging types in our inventory. By the way, and this is lodging type. This isn't number of rooms. This is just like, yeah, so there's less helpful data in that, but this is actual registrations that booked into each room. Okay, let's move on. So we also wanted to look at like what kind of behavior do people have when they book? And a question that we asked is how far in advance do guests book? What do people think? Are they last minute bookers? Or do they book a long time in advance? Or do you just scratch your head every time a retreat comes and you go like, who knows? Is this, or is it a nail biting experience? But all right, so let's take a look at the data. This might confirm some of your emotional experience. So 90 days out, we about a 26 before 90 days mark, about 26% of people have booked. Then in the next window of the next 60 to 90 days, 13% of people book in. The last month out, like the 2 months out, in that last sort of 2 months between 30 and 59 days, 21%. And then a whopping 40% of people book in the last month. What is happening with you people? Can you not make a decision? We have become a last minute booking society. Does this resonate? Yeah. Okay. So key takeaway here is if you're 30 days out and you only have 60% of your registrations in, that's great. I mean, you're on track. Don't fret. You're about to get 40% more. Um, there's certain things that you can do to maximize that, but this is the behavior of the industry. Um, and then I was curious, well, like, okay, what does this month look like? Um, but before we go on to there, I'm just curious about here's people's feedback on this slide. Yeah, anybody. It's a quiet group. So Linda,
I
you've
put
got the
in a
mic.
lot because I do a lot of this kind of analysis of our stuff, and I don't have numbers recent, but anecdotally, we feel like people are like this last year, let's say, or something like that, are booking more at the last minute than they did in the past. And part of it could be that our audience has changed a little bit because we've been doing a lot of search engine optimization and getting a lot more internet registrations, whereas before maybe people were mainly coming for their teachers. But
Hmm.
whatever the reason, we're finding that a lot more people are registering at, even in the last week. Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Hmm. That's great. Yeah.
David?
Yeah. The I want to say I was just going to say 8 years ago when we presented this data and Ling was in the room. So hey Ling, welcome to the call. This number was 33%. So it's actually grown from 33% to 40% in the last in the last chunk of time. So yeah, people are becoming more last minute bookers.
Hey
So
Cameron, great to see you, by the way. I
hi.
just I just got home from a commute, so I was so excited to land on this slide because I've been thinking about this across different centers for a while now. And I'm really curious to hear from people. Like I'm doing some advisory work with Big Bear right now, and we're looking at one of the questions I had was like, can we look at enrollment curves? Um, as a booking trend, like can we pull our registration data and look, I would love to do it by program, but even to look over like a block of programs, is that possible?
Yes, that's possible. Come talk to me.
Okay, amazing.
Yeah.
Because
And at
it
some point we want to
determines
build that in as a at some point in the future, we want to build that in as a feature in our software that you can actually run your real-time data reporting.
amazing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because it
And then
helps us
compare it against
determine.
benchmarks.
Yeah. Like the when we make sort of the go no go decisions and when we have to have conversations with teachers for programs that aren't enrolling well. And then also I know some centers will close registrations like a week or two in advance in order for like them to get final numbers for operations. And I'm always like, we gotta like
No.
put, yeah, exactly. That's my same response to that. But then it gets tricky operationally, so it's finding the
Yes.
balance for each place.
It's
But yeah, this is very affirming.
it's maddening. It's maddening to
Mhm.
get registrations pile in the last minute when let's say if your programs are by application, you don't Oh,
Right.
it's really difficult. David, did
Yeah.
you have a comment? Were you going to make a comment?
Yeah, I was going to say this absolutely tracks with our experience. And I think, especially as was said earlier, in the last year, it's become more and more frequent. We are one of those places that we're such a small place that we have to know a week in advance in order to have food and volunteers and everything in place for a group. And so I'm getting people who are even frustrated with just that. Like they want to be able to come like with 48 hours notice or sometimes even 24 hours notice. And we're not able to accommodate that. But I also, my question that came off of that was, um, so you have people who are registering closer, you have some people who are registering way out. At what point do we reach diminishing returns on when we like marketing with social media or getting the word out? Like, do I wait until the last couple months, or do people need that whole 90 days to get it in their brain and then they register at the last minute?
Excellent question. Yeah, it reminds me of the marketing funnel of like awareness, engagement, conversion. And 90 plus days out, you're doing all the, hey, this is happening. And then, then closer to it, you're running different campaigns. And so I'm curious about double clicking. I was curious about this 40%, because watching it grow over the years was a little unsettling. And so unpacked it to so what this is this slide looks at that's what we're doing is we've just double clicked on that 40%. And so the orange is just the percentage of that 40% in the last days. So the week, 4 weeks before, you're getting 17%, 15% come in, then 17 and 22% of that week, or the raw numbers of total registration. So in David's case, Osage, you guys are missing out by shutting registration a week early by 8.5% of registrations. Fair, could be a fair trade because just preparation and nervous system relaxation is worth it. But if you're looking to maximize, it's just interesting to know that, hey, there's a big chunk that's not coming because they're last minute bookers.
I think this is just the world we live in. People don't RSVP for things until the last minute. They don't, trying to plan a graduation party and are you coming? Are you going to be here? We need to order pizza, even that. Oh, well, maybe. And I think
I know.
factors, one, I think people are just very busy and have a lot going on and have a lot of options. And two, especially with the younger people, I think a lot of times I want to wait and see if something better comes along.
Yeah.
I will hold that weekend free and maybe I'll get invited to the friend's lake house or go to the retreat. So,
Yeah.
so I just, and I think it's not just retreat centers, I think it's the world we live in.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree with Liz. Cameron, this is Linda Cates from the Christine Center. Usually you see our executive director, Jonathan, here, but I'm here with one of my other board members, Julie, who's asked a couple questions. This is exactly what we've been seeing as well. And, we've tried some, I think, interesting things most recently, an early bird discount on registrations. And, I always, as a board member, I'm kind of on the peripheral of the operation, so I can have lots of ideas. I don't have to put them into action. And one of the things that I always suggest is that, if you want to know if it's going to work, check to see how you would respond to it, because, we're the audience as well, the participants. And for me, getting a discount for signing up early is encouraging. And and even though I am a spiritual seeker and committed to supporting the center, like Liz suggested, I'm looking for the best opportunity as well to spend my time. I have so limited free time to explore and adventure. So,
Thanks,
just
Linda.
yeah, thank you.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, what as a community, what we definitely don't want to do is offer last minute discounts because we're incenting people to wait, and then it's like a race to the bottom. And there's maybe no particular problem with this It's just how do we respond to it is the question. How do we build our marketing campaigns that meets people with their booking pattern? That's what we want to do. We need to be nimble. So you might run with this conversion rate in mind, you might run just a different campaign at different times. And that's where we want to get wise.
Mhm.
Um, so, looking at the booking countdown, 3 months out, 25% of bookings are in. 6 weeks out, half the bookings are in. The last 15 days, it counts for 25% of bookings. I mean, it's
Sure.
just like,
Well, and if you offer an early bird discount for registrations, then in essence, you are charging more for a later registration.
exactly. You've got
That,
a tiered price.
that's
That's
a good
right.
incentive.
Yeah. Yeah. And
All
maybe,
right.
your early bird discount is the actual price you want to charge, and then your late registration extra tax is the upgrade of 10%.
Sure,
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah.
I'm interested in hearing also. So one thing we tried very recently was we had some cancellations last minute because that's another thing that's been trending for us at least.
Oh, we have a
So
whole section on
what we
that.
did, oh good, because what we
Yeah.
did was we went online then on our social media accounts and said, hey, we've had two cancellations for this retreat. Would you like to, come? And actually, we did, it wasn't necessarily a discount, but we just said for a donation, you can come for the weekend kind of thing. So I'm just
Oh, yeah,
curious
lovely.
about.
Yeah, I mean, a great tactic, of course, is the moment the retreat fills, you set up a wait list. That's part of our software is to set up a wait list, and then you've got this whole list of people that you can market to, and even within Retreat Guru, you can hit one button and it just sends out that offer to everybody to come, and the reg link. It's all baked into that feature, so you can fill those last minute spots. Well, let's get to that when we get to cancellations. Well, last question we had is like, do the workshops behave differently, the 1 day workshops than the retreats?
There we go. Yeah, so in the 1 day workshops, we actually found that because it requires a little less planning and commitment from individuals, is our hypothesis that um, the large majority of the bookings for 1 day retreats, almost all of them, happen within the week of. There's very, very little that happens more than 30 days out, and the majority of them happen the week of.
So you want to really consider a 1 day workshop a very, very different beast than any day-long retreat or like overnight retreat. I'm sure this is all people are going,
And this
yes.
would also track for kind of online and hybrid 1 day events too, not just in-person events.
Again, maybe the thing is don't lose hope. If nobody's for your 1 day program, your online program, 85% of people book within the last week for just non-overnight workshops.
Alec or Cameron, can I just ask real quick? Sorry if
Mhm.
I missed this. The previous data that you showed, not the 1 day data, did that include online and hybrid, or were those just,
No,
oh
no,
wow.
yeah,
Okay, so it's not
this
like that was
Mhm.
skewing it. Okay.
Yeah, we made
No,
sure to scrub the data of no on no we took it to 2 days. Yeah, no online, no hybrid. It's all that's why I wanted to know if the 1 day acted differently.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah,
Thank
yeah.
you.
Okay, so then yeah, so David, you queued us up here. We then we started looking, okay, we know people cancel. What are we seeing in the behavior and trends around cancellations? Um, and of course, what we first thought we would look at is what the industry cancellation rate is. Let's pop quiz. Anybody? Just numbers. What do you think? What do you think the cancellation rate is? What percentage? 10%, says
10
Michael.
from
Okay.
Michael.
We're going to see who wins. Come on. Go on. Want some numbers here. Little guess.
20.
First thought, best
10.
thought. 5%, Rotten Ling, in for five. All right. Who's got
Is this for like overall programs?
overall industry cancellation rate?
I'm gonna say 20. Yeah, I'm like 25%.
25% cancel retreats. Oh my goodness. Okay. All right. Wow. Oh my goodness. I love it. All right. No one else is brave enough, willing to throw in another number. What's your gut? I want one more number. Let's see.
4.5%.
Who said that?
Liz here.
Okay,
4.5.
Liz, 4.5%. Okay. What we found, it is 3.52. 3.52 was the cancellation rate in 2023. It actually was 3.37, and it has been steadily going down. Now it is at 2.58, 2.85. So people might be last minute bookers, but they're more committed. Maybe you can't cancel if you're in the window. You've got the win. If you're last minute booking, this could suggest that you can't possibly cancel because you're within that 30-day, right? So our cancellation, that's the good news, rate is dropping here. And then of course, how far in advance do people cancel? And this was juicy. So okay, so really we're looking at cancellations aren't doing much because we don't really have bookings for these dates, so no one's canceling. But they really start to creep up, and the last week, 200 days out, we're at like 2% per week, and it rises sharply to 42% of all cancellations that come in, which is only 3.5% of all bookings. So again, 42% of close to half the cancellations come in the last week. So
One question that came up in the chat there, Marcella, was what kind of penalties or how do you handle cancellations within the group and the org? So I think that'd be actually really cool to know, what are some of how do you handle cancellations and what kind of penalties, if there are any?
And because I'm with Knobs Haven and we have sort of a unique model, which is I lead a program. But we do that independently. So I might have my own cancellation rate separate from what Knobs Haven and Cedars of Peace might then charge me. And I'm actually more aggressive with my cancellation rate. What we've been doing is a sliding rate. In other words, it's very typical, right? If the further out you cancel, the more you get back, right? The closer it is, the less you get back. And there's nothing when you're 30 days out, unless it was literally life and death, and people know that going in and they don't ask unless it's extreme. And that has helped us a lot because we would have people, oh, now I just found out the family reunion is that week. I think and we kind of made that change this past year. So I was just curious how other people are doing it.
On a last minute cancellation, we hold it on our books as a credit for a year.
I used to do that, and then I got overruled by my business partners.
It's just something that we're more comfortable with. So
What we do at Rotten Ling is if we have people can cancel up to 30 days, and now I'm beginning to wonder if we should adjust that. But we're very clear that after 30 days, there's no cancellations. But then then things happen. So people call, oh my God, my mother died, and we say, okay, that's fine. And what we do generally is we say, that's really understandable. We'll give you your money back. No, what we do, well, we usually try to move them to another retreat or just give them an open credit, but we withhold $200 as a transfer fee just to cover, whatever we go through to make it change if we've planned meals and all that stuff. So, and then if somebody says, I'm moving to England and I'll never be able to use this, then sometimes we might actually do a refund with minus the $200.
So a cancellation fee, mix of cancellation fees, credit, refunds.
Right.
Yeah.
And there, of course, you have your wait list. If you've waitlisted that program, then you could actively market to the wait list. And maybe the last minute bookers of that who are on your wait list might say, yeah, wow, okay, great, I'll take it.
No, we absolutely heavily use your wait list. Well, we're happy when we have a wait list that we can use your functionality for.
Yeah, fair.
Anybody else also encourage that person to then donate it to someone else?
Mm.
We've done that. We can't give you a refund. Would you like to give this as a donation? At least they get the tax write-off. I guess they would anyway, whether I don't know what the rules are about that, but as a way to, and then invite someone.
That makes me think, I wonder if, because I just got an email today from Retreat Guru, that we had some credits expiring. It makes me wonder if maybe we could reach out to those folks and say, hey, your credit's about to expire. Would you like to donate it?
Oh,
Yeah.
wow, that's that's great.
That's
Yeah.
beautiful.
Yeah, I love that.
Does anyone offer insurance? That if you paid extra, I'm only thinking of this because my mother just booked a Viking cruise and they have an upfront cancel for any reason insurance policy. It is not cheap, but they must make a killing on that.
Well, if it's more than
for
3%.
a $10,000 trip, the insurance was $1,500. They must make a killing on that.
Well, there you go, right? I mean, even in our line, we know that the cancellation rate is 3.5%. Maybe it'll be higher if people had a cancel anytime policy. But if you're charging a 10% premium, you're making 6.5% spread against the industry benchmark, right? And you're addressing the people who are more fearful and are willing to, I mean, that could be an interesting an offering. I think there are third party.
Somebody's come up with that idea. I'm
For sure, someone's come up. Yeah, I know. I've seen it actually, and in the vacation space is there. So why couldn't that come to the retreat space? Yeah.
Yeah, and you could sell it as an add-on too on your registration forms too if you want.
Yeah, that's how they did it,
Yeah.
right?
You could bake your own.
Yeah, you can make your own.
Right there it was. And it is still fully non-refundable 30 days out, even with insurance, but then you get to roll it as a credit. I mean, it is completely, and I'm not saying we should all be Machiavellian here, but it, it gives the person what they want. We can cancel for any reason, so I don't have to worry about booking. Protects the retreat center in theory, right?
Thanks for that, Marcel. That's a really juicy suggestion. I don't know if we've seen any of our centers do that, although we provide the functionality for them to do that. But I don't know if I've seen anyone bake their own cancellation. But now you have the data, so perhaps there's an opportunity. Okay. And this is something that we just went through. It's here for more reference about like a 3-zone framework. This is no news to all of us, and just like what recommendation. But for the sake of time, I'm just going to put through it. Of course, we talked already about some of these, like credit first policy, and have optional cancellation protection. So here we are. Yeah. Okay. I love when the conversation happens before the slide. It makes me, now I feel like I'm doing my job. Okay. So then we looked at what are the demographics of people who are coming on retreat. And then of course we looked at what times of year do people book versus attend. Alec?
Yeah, I'm just going to get to that there. Yeah, so we looked at also the seasonality of bookings. And before even pulling this out of the data, my premonition was that everybody books in January, new year, new me. But when we dig into it further, we actually see that the highest booking months are in the spring, in March and May. Maybe it has more with the energy of a new new beginnings, blossoming, all the trees and flowers. But this also aligns nicely and rolls nicely into the busiest months of attending. So when the registration actually starts. And people most attend retreats in the summer months of July and August.
Yeah, just a quick thing. I should the light pink is
Mhm.
attendance. It might be hard to read. And then the dark, the auburn is when people book. Okay, so go ahead, Alec.
Thanks, Cam. Um, and the lowest attendance is in January and February, which is probably no news, especially since most of the people here are centers in North America. But that's the lowest attendance months for us.
Okay. And then we also, oh, go ahead.
I have a comment. Sorry, what we're finding is that holidays and 3-day weekends, especially well, both, but we fill up. It doesn't matter what the program is, almost. It's like we just fill up on holidays. So I don't know if that's relevant to anybody, but we're starting to put our newer teachers or our newer programs on a holiday because we know people will come and they get exposure.
Oh,
Not
That's a
exactly
really good
seasonal, but sort of.
point there. Yeah, because if you combined the most common type of retreats for people to register, 3 and 4 day long retreats, so weekend and long weekends, and then people don't have to take an extra day off for a long weekend to do like a 4 day retreat. So that's yeah, and then that could suggest, like you said, to line up those programs who might need additional help or forecast that these are the really busy points of our season. Let's try and optimize our bookings for that.
Yeah, I appreciate you also sharing, Linda, the strategy about getting the newer teachers exposure because it's more guaranteed. That's great. Okay, and then the other question that we had is, well, actually, no, back up here, back up. So again, when we think about the booking windows, how people book, and then also when they book, this should really help guide you for your marketing playbook. When do we do our marketing spend, right? Maybe it's tempting to do, um, you know, yeah, just obviously it's the first half of the year is when you want to be spending the most, but like so this is when people are booking, but then we also know that but the time before the program starts. So we have to sort of architect the advertising around the start date and also around our season. So hopefully this benchmarking will help you kind of guide you when you should do your marketing spend. And of course, we have a mix of centers in North America and Central and South America, right? So our Central and South America centers, this is probably the lion's share of the attendance here in the light pink in the early days because everyone's going to Costa Rica in January, February, and March. Okay. So then we looked at gender mix and wanted to know, is it changing? And here's the breakdown. Big shocker. We have 70%, 7 out of 10 of our registrations that we have the gender data for are identify as female, and then 27% identify as male, and about combined 1% identify as non-binary, gender diverse. So any thoughts on that? Come on, guys. Retreats are fun. Come on, guys. That's what I want to say. Guys, the water's great. Come on, man. It's good. It's good. You'll be okay.
I'll weigh in with one little thing is that when we ask, we often find the men have come with their wives
Well,
as opposed to signing up themselves.
oh, that's great. Oh, I'd love to do the data analysis on that. Oh my gosh. Okay, you sparked something.
We have a
Oh, uh-huh.
that's been, their women have been coming for several years, a lot of years. Their men's group finally this year, well, we heard a lot about this. We think we want to try it. So
Yeah.
in their men's group in a couple of weeks here.
Okay. Well, that was what a question I had too. Is like, well, has this changed over the years? Was this like maybe 10 years ago or 5 years ago? Was it 15% and this is a big growth? So that was a question that we had. And yeah, this looks like a broken slide, but really it's not. So this is the change.
Or lack
There's
thereof.
no change. Over 4 years, it's flatlined. I'm sorry. I mean, like, yeah, no change.
Which is funny because when we look at um, how well our men's focused retreats do on our marketplace, there's some of there's some of the ones that actually get the most attention or bookings sometimes. There's very few men's only retreats, but when they are posted on the marketplace, it's quite successful. So is it a chicken and egg situation? This is something to play with.
And so there was one useful piece of data here. Then we analyzed what the gender mix was across the different retreat lengths. And actually, we did find a little trend. This is men here on a 3-day retreat. 21% of men comprise 3-day retreats, 78% of women. But when we start seeing the 4-day, 5-day, 6-day, 7-day, 8-day retreats, the percentage of men coming on longer retreats grows. So what we're seeing here is that men are less likely to do a weekend retreat, but they are interested in a more immersive experience. Does this represent and what I'd love to do, which would be maybe data presentation 2.0, is to look at the gender mix across different retreat program types. Does it differ Christian versus psychedelic versus yoga and meditation? My hunch is that more men are doing psychedelics, and that might represent, but there's not a lot of psychedelic data in here. There's some, but it's not the majority. The majority of our data, of course, is like mindfulness meditation and yoga and Christian. So, but yeah, here we go. There's maybe an opportunity here for us to attract more men, offer men's retreats that are a little bit longer. Might try a 6-day, a week-long men's retreat, if that's the segment you're looking to expand into. Okay. Any insights on this slide? Well, I'll just make an aspiration. Go ahead,
Some
Alec.
cool observations in the chat.
Oh, I can't see the chat. I'm so sorry. The way that this is
that more men are with, I think Andreas has mentioned that with the Vipassana retreats and more meditation programs also around the link, that more men are showing up for those types of retreats. So yeah, Cam, you're on the right track, that we should maybe dig into a little bit more of retreats type and gender.
My bad. I didn't have the meeting chat up. I just put it in. So I'm seeing all this great. Okay. Well, I'll have to read these after. Thanks. I thought you guys were all super quiet, but you're just texting. Okay. All right. Well, there's a whole host of recommendations, takeaways and recommendations. I'm not going to get into them because we have like 4 minutes left on the call, but I'll buzz through them quickly. There's a plan about how you can build out your marketing campaigns, about treating your last month as a planned sales period or planned marketing period, and different things to do for each week. So that last minute booking window doesn't have to be a panic. It just needs to be planned. There's a discussion about what you can do to keep up with the rise of inflation. And we talked a little bit about cancellation policy and how you can build one to protect your revenue. And then some insight about how you might price and how you might talk about upsells or add-ons and how you basically would price based on not what your neighbors are pricing, but actually the cost that you have and building up from there. So these are, I thought maybe if weren't getting into enough conversation, we would unpack these. But that's it.
Oh my gosh. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much, Alec and Cameron, for a very informative conversation. It has made me think about a lot of different impacts on operations, hospitality, kitchen management, and how we cancel and how that impacts what we do, how that impacts how we market, how we hire teams, to do all these different pieces. And it's just fascinating. And I think it would be amazing to have you come back for a 2.0 and maybe in 6 months or so, and we'll kind of see where that takes us. I will say that this is probably our highest attended call, so I think it does show that our collaboration is very interested in growing and looking at the data and tailoring their offerings to the data. So it's super helpful. I want to just let folks know that our next call is next Thursday, April the 2nd. We have Usha from Mount Madonna leading us in a roundtable on board and staff partnership. She's going to talk a lot about how the Mount Madonna team has come closer together through some of her leadership as the chair of their board. So that's going to be super exciting. And I just want to note that if your center hasn't thought about becoming a member of the Retreat Center Collaboration, a paid member, I would love to chat with you and let you know more about that. It's what sustains our operations, and we're growing, getting closer to 100 paid members. So that's super exciting. And I'd also just like to say Retreat Guru is even a member. So we'd love to connect with you and tell you more about that. And lastly, I just want to say that going forward, all of our community calls and community roundtables will require a registration, which is super simple. There's a link and you just sign up, and that's actually going to help us know who's actually here, be able to get in contact with you, and track kind of trends ourselves. So that's a new development, and so don't be nervous about that. Everybody's welcome as always. And last, our retreat, which is October 20th to 23rd, which is going to be, I'm happy to say, at Lindenwood, where Paul, who was on this call, is the executive director in Indiana. I believe that's going to come out tomorrow. So don't be in the 40% registration, be in the 90 days or more, please and thank you. Anyways, jesting aside, it was so beautiful to see all of you here, and I'm so grateful to have spent this time with you, and I hope that you have a really amazing day.
Thanks, everybody. Thanks for sharing your wisdom and your comments. We will send this out to everybody.
And
Yep.
thank you, everyone, for also